Hello, everyone. I am Erik Mona, the publisher and chief creative officer at Paizo, and I am thrilled to welcome you to Paizo's keynote address for this most auspicious and exciting Gen Con week. We are so glad to have opportunity to meet with you both in person at our booth and in the Sagamore Ballroom at Gen Con Indy, and of course on our Discord and our gaming live this weekend throughout the week on our Twitch channel, where we're doing a host of seminars and programming and workshops. Anywhere that we are going to be and you are going to be, we're looking forward to getting to see you and say hi and show off some of the stuff that we've just released, some of the stuff we've announced, and even some stuff we have not announced yet. So this is it. It's the big week. Gen Con is finally upon us. For an entire schedule of Paizo's activities, both at the show and online, please go to paizo.com/GenCon. You'll see an entire schedule of events. You'll see a way to get involved with our Pathfinder Society and Starfinder Society organized play programs, and even more. So go to paizo.com/GenCon and check out our schedule of events there. I'm just going to be scratching the surface today as I take you through now to about the middle of next year, and we go over all the various Pathfinder and Starfinder projects that we're going to be releasing in the meantime. But an hour is not nearly long enough to go into all the details. So I encourage you to take a look at that seminar schedule, where members of our creative staff will be going in depth into a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. They'll also likely have Q&As as part of their panels as well. So if you see something that interests you in today's presentation and you want to find out more, check out that schedule of events, and someone else will very likely have even more details than I do. So I've got, as perhaps folks have known me to do before, I have a giant presentation in PowerPoint with lots and lots of art that no one has ever seen before, going further into the schedule than we've even announced publicly yet. But before I get to that, I want to talk about something else that has just arrived at Paizo itself and will soon be making its way out into the world. And what I am talking about at long last is our Kingmaker Adventure Path for 2nd edition, 1st edition, and 5th edition. This is an ongoing project that we launched a couple of years ago on Game on Tabletop, and boy, those projects have a way of ballooning, and the balloon is literally here in my home office right now. Check this out, folks. It's so heavy. This is the entire slate of Kingmaker projects, except that's not even true. It's not the entire slate. There's special edition covers that I'm missing. There's a slipcase that I'm missing. There's a couple of flip mats that I'm missing. When I went to the Paizo offices to grab this stack to show you folks today, I was like, it's too heavy and it's too much for an entire frame of the screen. No wonder it took us as long as it did to put it together. Look at all this stuff. In fact, let's take a closer look real quick before we get into the presentation. So this is the Kingmaker campaign guide. It is in my hands, 600 pages of Pathfinder 2nd edition goodness. This is the world famous Kingmaker Adventure Path brought to Pathfinder 2nd edition for the very first time. A lot of people would tell you Kingmaker is the best adventure path that we've ever published, maybe even the best adventure path ever published. I am on that camp, so I'm very thrilled to have this book finally coming out. It's going to be shipped to our original Game on Tabletop backers in September, and then it will be released in stores in October as well. So by the end of October, don't worry if you missed your chance a couple years ago at Game on Tabletop, you will have the chance to pick this up on Paizo.com, at your friendly local retail store and bookstores, online retailers, etc., the whole 9 yards. This is the biggest adventure we have ever published. It's got all kinds of new material in it from Owlcat's extremely successful Kingmaker computer game. So there's the equivalent of a couple of full new adventures in here. This adventure will take you from 1st to 20th level. It's been a huge labor of love, and we are thrilled to have it finally coming out. So let's take a look at a couple of the other components of the Kingmaker project. And the one that really excites me is this one. This is the Kingmaker Companion Guide. This takes a number of different companions, largely inspired, in fact, wholly inspired from the Kingmaker computer game. And it talks about how you can introduce them as companions into your Pathfinder 2nd edition game. So this thing has got information on a whole ton of companions. It has got adventures that you can plug into your campaign throughout the course of the campaign that they bring to you, similar to how you might see that in a computer game. It's got the feats and spells and abilities that, or gear that they could teach or give you once you befriend them. And it's really like a holistic guide to how to add these characters to the Kingmaker campaign with tips on what to do with them at certain key story points and so on. Honestly, I was so impressed with this book. I think this will work even outside the Kingmaker campaign. So if you're just looking for some companions to go along with your player characters, this is going to be a great resource. 128 pages, coming out in September to backers and October in stores. We also know a lot of folks are still playing Pathfinder First Edition. So with this Pathfinder First Edition bestiary, you can kind of keep this open alongside your Kingmaker campaign guide, and all of the NPCs are listed in here alphabetically. So you just go from stat block in one book to stat block in here. Should have you covered. Some general advice as well on how to handle some of the non-stat block stuff that's a little bit different in Pathfinder Second Edition for Pathfinder First Edition. So if you're a First Edition stalwart and you just haven't had a chance to switch over to Second Edition yet, maybe you don't want to, you can grab this book, play it in the edition that you're comfortable with, and you should have a great time. Similarly, we know that there's a lot of folks who are playing 5e. We hear that's popular. So check this out. This is a companion guide. It is a bestiary that, like the first edition Pathfinder bestiary, you stick next to the full campaign guide as you're running. You just move your eyes from one book to the other when it comes to the stat blocks. And these have full 5e stat blocks for all of the creatures in the book. So even outside of the Kingmaker adventure path, you're looking for and some new monsters to add to your 5e campaigns. This is going to be a great pickup for you. This also comes out September to backers, October in stores. There's a bunch of other cool accessories like the Kingdom Management screen. This is a GM screen that on one side has all kinds of stuff that you would need to run your kingdom. Kingmaker, after all, is a campaign about carving the wilderness and maintaining it as its ruler. And then on the outside, it's got the Stolen Lands map of the location that you will be covering. Now, that's a fun thing to look at when your GM is protecting their notes. You also will end up as players having a kingdom tracker. This is like a character sheet for your kingdom, and you can track all the important details. That is an accessory that comes out in September and October. We also have the poster map folio, long out of print, and this is the new version. And this has got a full map of the Stolen Lands, a couple of other key encounter locations, and then we have 3 Flipmat 2-packs. This is the only one I grabbed from the office. This is the Flipmat Noble Manor, but we also have River Kingdom Ruins and a campsite. So that's going to be really helpful whether you're playing Kingmaker or not. So all this stuff is designed to work with the Kingmaker campaign, but it will also transport to other campaigns very, very easily. So on top of that, like I said, we've got slipcases, we've got some backer exclusive stuff like coins and what have you. Lots of cool stuff all coming very shortly. It is in our warehouse now, most of it. Barring any last minute holdups at the port, we should be on track to get that out to backers just next month. So thanks to everyone for their support and for their patience. I'm happy to report we are finally pretty much there, and we could not be happier with the final product. Kingmaker for 2nd, 1st, and 5th edition is going to be one of the most ambitious, most exciting projects Paizo's ever done, and I'm very excited to say that it's finished. So hooray! So with that behind us, let's take a look at the route forward, and I am going to call up my PowerPoint, and a cavalcade of imagery is about to begin. So let's get this started. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Gen Con update. You can see here an image from our newly released Dark Archive sourcebook for Pathfinder. But before we get back to Pathfinder, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about Starfinder is in the midst of a very exciting event right now known as Drift Crisis. So the Drift Crisis sourcebook came out in May of this year and is currently available on store shelves. And that kicks off pretty much a year-long story event within the Starfinder galaxy. What's happening during the Drift Crisis is that the Drift, our hyperspace dimension, is malfunctioned. In fact, it crashed. And when that happened, it spat out different portions of the multiverse into real space. It sucked some of the people traveling through the Drift into different realities, different dimensions, different planes, and it is rewriting the connections between different planets. The space routes themselves have been completely changed during this catastrophic event. And so, of course, in the context of that, new opportunists are trying to make the most of it. Piracy is on the rise. And really, the Drift Crisis helps to answer the question of, okay, so why play Starfinder right now? What's happening right now? And the answer is, it's the Drift Crisis. And we'll be exploring the Drift Crisis in a variety of different manners. The first one is the Drift Crasher Adventure Path. This is the current adventure path for Starfinder. It comes in the form of 3 standalone 64-page adventures that together combine into a campaign arc that takes you from 1st to about 11th level. They've already released in June. Another one releases this month in August, and then the final volume will release in October, so every other month. In Drift Crashers, the crew of the starship Murata finds itself stranded and shunted from the drift into hell itself. Their starship now has the power to travel anywhere in space and time after merging with the enemy ship of a pack of devils. And then they crash through parallel universes, face strange versions of themselves, and reach an apocalyptic future where everyone they know is dead. Then it's off to save a Solarian monastery from a black hole, a side trip to Desna's personal home inside a star, and a final confrontation with their diabolical nemesis in a 4-dimensional tesseract. Drift Crashers, and here's a look at what one of the individual volumes looks like, the first one that's on store shelves now. Drift Crashers is crazy. It is like every volume is a very special episode. I'm thinking of like episodes like Yesterday's Enterprise from Star Trek The Next Generation, or the Mirror Universe episodes. Any kind of science fiction adventure that shunts you to a different dimension, that has some familiarity but is a different place. Each episode of Drift Crashers is going to send the player characters into one such very special episode. This is one of the most unbridled creative adventure paths Starfinder has ever put out, and it puts your player characters right at the center of an interstellar disaster and how they deal with the ramifications of being caught at moment 1 of the Drift Crisis. Tells the whole story of the Drift Crashers adventure path. As with most adventure paths, of course, it is an adventure sourcebook hybrid. There are all kinds of interesting NPCs to meet, befriend, destroy, and this one has got some really special ones, so wanted to give you a look at some of them here. Lots of great characters. One of the cool things about Starfinder is just the vast variety of aliens you might meet during the course of your adventures. And the Drift Crashers is going to take you even further afield than we've ever gone before. So that is the first big adventure component of the Drift Crisis, and that is on store shelves now and coming out through the end of the year. We also have a number of standalone adventures in the Starfinder line. Not all of them are directly tied in to the Drift Crisis, and a good example of that is this adventure, Redshift Rally. This is out now, or it's coming out this month. It is 7th level adventure on the 20th anniversary of the Absalom Run Starship Race. The heroes step in after an accident and must help Redshift Revolution Starship manufacturer team beat their dastardly competitors to win the rally. Redshift Rally by Jessica Catalan is a very exciting adventure where you play the crew of a racing team. There are space races, there are land races, there are planetary adventures, there's dealing with the media, there's dealing with other teams of racers like the ones we see. The Starfinder's future allows us the opportunity to tell some stories that would never be appropriate for Pathfinder, and that's where things like mass media and just the idea of huge starship races comes into play. And of course, it being a Starfinder adventure, we promise an explosive finish. Another big adventure coming out this year in September. We are releasing a compilation of the Dead Suns Adventure Path. This is the very first Starfinder adventure path that we ever published, now brought together for the first time, all 6 volumes together under 2 hardcovers. So this is going to be our very first hardcover adventure compilation for Starfinder. It repackages and updates the Dead Suns adventure path. The early volumes of the Dead Suns Adventure Path are both some of our best-selling adventures that Paizo has ever published, and also out of print and getting hard to find. So we wanted to make sure that folks who wanted to jump in on Starfinder literally at the very beginning had a great and easy opportunity to do that. That is the Dead Suns Adventure Path, and it comes out in hardcover in September, just a month or so away. Couple shots of classic encounters from Dead Suns. I think this monster has probably killed more Starfinder characters than any other since the beginning of the game. Lots of cool events to recreate and revisit, or visit for the very first time if you never had a chance to play Dead Suns back when it first came out. So some epic NPCs that everyone remembers or soon will know. And then here are even more of them, including Louisa El Cibo, the first Seeker of the Starfinder Society, which we'll be coming back to a little bit later in this presentation. But lots of fun characters to encounter, including some new ones. Hey, check it out! Interstellar Species is our next hardcover rulebook for the Starfinder line. Interstellar Species comes out in November. It's a 192-page source book, and it provides 25 deep dives on some of the most popular species that you can play as characters in Starfinder. So we have, here you see, for example, there's all kinds of different species, including some folks who just want to get some online cred by taking pictures of themselves at huge titanic battles against the swarm. And this book is going to take 25 creatures and give you a full treatment. So one of the neat things about Starfinder is over the course of 4 alien archives and the number of back matter articles in the adventure paths, we have introduced a huge number of playable species. But a lot of times the reality is we've only had the space to do a couple of paragraphs of special powers and some background stuff for them. This book takes 25 and goes deeper into them with lots of options for player characters, and a lot of cultural detail on popular species for Starfinder. In addition to that, love this Uplifted Bear. Uplifted Bear is hugely popular in Starfinder, by the way. So here we have a sports star, Uplifted Bear. Lots of cool other aliens as well. And then one of the really coolest things about this book, Interstellar Species, is that it introduces a brand new class for the Starfinder game, that class being the Evolutionist, which you see here. The Evolutionist went through extensive playtesting, and we appreciate all of the help with that. And the final version will be coming out in November in Interstellar Species. So the Evolutionist is a really exciting class to play, and it gives you the opportunity to modify your character kind of as you go. So you can transform yourself over time into an eldritch being, a mechanized construct, a sepulchral undead, or a riot of biological potential, each with unique abilities and drawbacks should you allow your transformation to go out of control. You can gain and spend mutation points during combat to gain extra abilities, and you have free and cheaper augmentations. Plays into a lot of the individual species rules in the book as well. Here's another look at the iconic Evolutionist. And then here 3 types of evolutionists as well. So there's lots of different variety within a class that in and of itself provides a ton of different variety through making changes on the go. So again, November, Interstellar Species, huge rulebook release for the Starfinder role-playing game. Let's get back to the Drift Crisis and back to adventures, because starting in December, we are also launching the Drift Hackers adventure path. So this thing actually starts at 7th level. So the first one takes you up to 7th. This is a follow-on to that. So you can play each individually. But whereas Drift Crashers was all about being sucked into the cataclysm of the Drift Crisis as it's happening, Drift Hackers is all about exploring what's going on and hopefully putting an end to the drift crisis and bringing a sense of balance and stability back to the Starfinder galaxy. So this, over the course of 3 adventures that start in December and come out bi-monthly, this is going to tell the conclusion of the drift crisis storyline, and it is December, February, and April. So the lack of response to the drift crisis by the goddess Triune, who gave the drift to the people of the galaxy, has sent her domain, Eluvion, at the center of the drift into chaos. Triune's faithful have fractured into warring factions. All the while, the mysterious architects responsible for the drift crisis consolidate their power in Triune's main temple. The PCs must help heal the divide and bring an end to the drift crisis. So here's a look at the first volume of the Drift Hackers Adventure Path. Lots of beautiful things going on, lots of interesting stuff happening in the drift as you approach Illusion, and lots of battles to come. It is a difficult political problem between the gods that make up the goddess Triune and their followers, and some of them are perhaps up to no good. So this will be an opportunity to jump into that mystery and have the players do some real heroics that bring some balance and restore some much needed sanity to the Starfinder universe in the wake of the drift crisis. Here are some of the NPCs you can meet. Love these guys. And that is the Drift Hackers Adventure Path. After that, I want to talk a little bit about To Defy the Dragon. This adventure is a standalone adventure, comes out in November. It's a great way to follow up perhaps Drift Hackers or any of the other shorter adventure paths that we've done. And check it out. This is a classic fantasy story brought to science fantasy. So on the planet Genrovis, a dragon has taken over, and not just taken over a cave, but taken over cities, corporations, etc. And it's up to the player characters to try to unseat that dragon and save the planet. And in doing so, they'll of course have to interact with a variety of interesting and exciting NPCs who will lead them to the one weapon that will allow 10th level characters to fight against a powerful dragon. And that, of course, are giant ancient mechs. So through the course of the adventure, you track down these giant mechs, you find them, you bring them back to life, and while wearing them and piloting them, you use the mechs to fight directly against the dragon. So this in some ways is your classic Slay the Dragon adventure, albeit in a new science fantasy context that brings some of the mech rules into play, and it's going to be a really titanic battle between dragons and mechs. That is To Defy the Dragon. That comes out in November. Following up, we have got a accessory that I'm pretty excited about. This comes out in March of 2023. So we're in 2023 now, folks. We are going to be releasing the Deck of Endless NPCs. We just put out a very similar product for this for Pathfinder that people are digging. It's, of course, based on the Deck of Many Worlds for Starfinder that we put out a couple years ago. And with the drawing of 4 cards, you can create over 1 million different combinations of NPCs. So your players are in a spaceport, they run into an unusual NPC, and you just don't have anything off the top of your mind. You can draw 4 cards, you get their species, you get their motivation, you get their secret motivation, and you get a bunch of other details that are going to allow you to weave that character right into your campaign seamlessly. Your players won't even know that just didn't come from your copious prep. So Deck of Endless NPCs coming March 2023. Very exciting accessory for Starfinder. Now, the drift crisis is over by the time we get into 2023, but in its wake, it leaves a vast amount of change in the Starfinder galaxy. And one way that we're going to be following up on that is through this standalone adventure anthology called Drift Crisis Case Files. Drift Crisis Case Files contains 3 short mystery adventures where people have come to the Eyes Wide agency that the player characters are appended to, and they need help. Maybe a relative went missing during the drift crisis. Maybe a key item was lost when they were forced to be refugees and flee from their homes. There are 3 different adventures with 3 different flavors, and it's all about detectives following up on mysteries created by the Drift Crisis. So that will work with or without the Drift Crisis, but they are lots of cool mystery adventures in the first adventure anthology that we have ever put out for Starfinder. That also comes out in March. Now, something very exciting that we have not yet talked about is Ports of Call. Ports of Call is a brand new hardcover book. This is scheduled for release in May of 2023. So it is the next big rulebook release for Starfinder following Interstellar Species. And one of the cool things about the Drift Crisis is that it has rewritten what we call the drift lanes, the routes through hyperspace that dictate how long it takes to go from one place to another. And in doing so, it has opened up a whole vast array of new locations for your player characters to visit, explore, and adventure within. So Ports of Call has got several of those locations. It's got 10 that we go into really great depth on, 10 that we go into a little bit less depth on. So we're covering 20 total locations, plus a handful of just quick snippets about other key spaceports in the Starfinder galaxy. So this goes probably more closer to the ground level than a lot of the setting stuff that we've done before. The idea being your player characters are landing here. Let's get them right into the action right away. So there's little adventure hooks, there's NPCs, there's gear that is unique to that location, lore and abilities that you can only learn in those locations. And here's another look at this awesome cover. Like I said, the basis of this is navigating through the new drift lanes, and then you're going to go to lots of different places and meet lots of different critters. A huge variety of locations. But given that there are 20 locations that you can visit in here, it's tempting to say that we've covered everything. But of course, there's one location that Starfinder players can never get to, and that is the planet of Golarion, the setting of the Pathfinder game, presumably in the distant past of the Starfinder universe, but during the mysterious missing time known as the Gap, something happened and Golarion disappeared, leaving only Absalom Station, which once was in its orbit, to mark where the planet once was. So you really can't go back to Golarion. But wait, what's this? Is this aliens meeting Queen Abigail of Cheliax herself? How could that possibly be? Well, my friends, let me welcome you to Golarion World, an amusement planet based around the lore of the missing planet Golarion. Now, there are a lot of missing details given what happened in the Gap and all of the lack of knowledge, but we have done our best to approximate what it was actually like to live on the planet of Golarion in ancient days. Why, stop by our gift store to buy your very own suit of Hell Knight armor. Why not stop for an octopus ice cream? And if you're really lucky, you can stand in line and meet a genuine Golarion goblin who will be roaming and making himself available for photographs with you and your family. We ask that you please not tug on the costume. It was very expensive for us to create. But the planet of Golarion World is open to you and all visitors at last when we release the Ports of Call book in May of 2023. Now let's talk about another thing we have not talked about before, and this is a big one. This is the Scoured Stars Adventure Path, and it is releasing in July of 2023. This is about as far out as I'm going in this presentation, but I wanted to at least hint at what's coming post Drift Hackers, and that is the Scoured Stars Adventure Path. Now, you might notice a pretty significant difference. This is a hardcover book. So when we wrap the Drift Hackers Adventure Path, we're going to be experimenting with a new format when it comes to Starfinder Adventure Paths, and that is we're doing them all at once, and we're doing them all in hardcover books. And we're starting with a very special adventure path based on the first season of Starfinder Society Organized Play Scenarios. I said the first seeker, Louisa El Cibo, would make a return appearance. There she is on the right. This is the story of the formation of the modern era of the Starfinder Society. So as the campaign begins, the player characters are adventurers who want to get involved in this interstellar adventuring society, but the society has seen better days. In fact, most of its leadership and members were recently lost in a dangerous part of space known as the Scoured Stars. And what we have done with this book is we have taken 12 original Pathfinder or Starfinder Society scenarios, heavily updated them for play at home, and stitched them together into a collective narrative that they already were. But this is going to be a series of, a lot of them are kind of one-offs. So a lot of them are like, go and this is the planet of this week, and this is the planet of next week. But it's all within the context of rebuilding the Starfinder Society and exploring the Scoured Stars. This is a project that we've been working on for about a year now, under the guidance of Thurston Hillman, who is our new managing creative director of the Starfinder line, and he was the genius behind the Scoured Stars scenarios the first time around, and now we are bringing them, fully updating them again for home play. You will be able, I believe, to play this for Starfinder Society credit again as well if you'd like, and then this will be the very first adventure path under this new format. And I will say, a few months later, we've got another adventure path coming. So we have plans for like 3 or 4 of these in the future, and indefinitely going on forward. So Starfinder is definitely something we are supporting wholeheartedly, and we're just trying to give it a little bit of an experimentation on the format. We want to see what it's like when people have the opportunity to buy the adventure paths all at once, rather than have to watch them come out over the course of 6 months. And we'll see how it goes. But this is Scoured Stars Adventure Path, 256 pages, comes out in July. Should take about 70 hours to play. It'll take you from levels 1 to 15. So lots of adventure content packed into this book. A really exciting new future for Starfinder starting in July with the Scoured Stars Adventure Path. Now, I should point out also that the next adventure path, 100% new, not revisiting Starfinder Society content. This is just a special celebratory one. Then we'll get back to the brand new stuff, and it couldn't be more brand new than the next one that we're about to announce in a few months. But I can't talk about it now because I can't talk about everything, and I still got to talk about lots more. Okay, let's talk briefly about Starfinder Society. A new season called the Year of Redemption's Rise started in May. As the Starfinder Society struggles in the aftermath of the devastating Data Scourge digital attacks, they embark upon a year of change, aiming to rebuild a better, stronger society. The Starfinder's plans for a brighter tomorrow pit them against opportunistic criminals, internal corruption, and a secretive criminal organization with a centuries-old connection to the Starfinder Society. So no need to wait. You can get involved in Starfinder Society adventures right now, either by, if you're at Gen Con, head up to the Sagamore Ballroom and we'll get you seated at a game, or hop over to paizo.com/GenCon, join our Discord, and get involved with Gen Con online programming through organized play and the Starfinder Society. So we welcome you to join the Year of Redemption's Rise, and we welcome you indeed to check out all of the Starfinder stuff I have just talked about. So with Starfinder, having talked about Starfinder, let's talk a little bit about Pathfinder. And the big news of Pathfinder, in fact, news of the week, is the Dark Archive. This is the newest hardcover book for the Pathfinder game, and it is the second edition answer to the paranormal. So this is a guide to paranormal themes that is based around the eponymous Dark Archive itself, which was a faction of the Pathfinder Society Adventurers Guild. But as a bit of a background and a fun kind of way to track the various chapters of this, what we've done is we've set Dark Archive up as a series of folios that come into the possession of the player characters, each on a different subject of paranormal interest. Anything from cults to cryptids to time travel to all kinds of spooky stuff. Here we see a lantern piercing the veil to other worlds where we're being observed by demons themselves. Here we've got a ritual that gets you in contact with your past lives. Lots of stuff on unusual creatures and mindscapes, psychic duels, and windows into other worlds and time. There's even some stuff about time travel in Dark Archive. Each of the individual folios has a short adventure that goes with it. So if you want to immerse yourself in how this stuff interacts with the world, you can do that. And all of those folio adventures even link together into a sort of mini campaign you can play over a variety of levels that tell a story of the secrets that are hidden in the Dark Archive folios themselves. Here's a couple of the characters you might meet during the course of that, or a couple of looks at archetypes from itself. Some monsters in this book as well. There's lots of spells and lore and feats and other character abilities that you can add along the thematic lines of each of the individual folios. And then let's talk a little bit about the two new character classes that are presented in this book. On the left there, we have Thalion, the Psychic. Psychics allow you to focus your character around a psychic power beyond just telekinesis spells. You can throw stuff around, wield swords at a distance, stop arrows in midair, and you can do it all day long. You specialize in reusable cantrips and focus spells. There's 24 different types of psychic, and each one is a combination of your conscious, which is like what you cast, and your subconscious, which is how you cast it. So there's a lot of different variety within the psychics itself. On the right, we have our second class in this book. That is Mios, our iconic thaumaturge. The thaumaturge is a more classic sort of occultist character. It's the quintessential magic dabbler slash detective that lets you play all sorts of occult monster hunters, and they're steeped in a more ceremonial and symbolic type of mysticism than a baseline wizard and cleric. So they have lots of story hooks and mystic flavor. And how it works is you have a wide range of implements and feats that draw from every magical tradition. There are 9 implements total, and over the course of your character's career, you'll be able to specialize in 3 of them. The implement might be something like an enchanted lantern or a variety of other different magical implements that are going to make each thaumaturge more or less unique. It is a full martial class that allows you to deal more damage to creatures based on classic fantasy weaknesses. So, for example, if you are facing werewolves, the thaumaturge is the one who's making sure that you have silvered weapons and can do even more damage with them against the foes that he knows or that they know. The Dark Archive provides an eclectic variety of rules themed around 8 different types of paranormal phenomena, as I mentioned before. And there's lots of cool gear, spells, etc. in the Dark Archive. The Dark Archive is out right now. You can pick it up at the Paizo booth at your friendly local game store or your favorite online retailer. Now, let's talk about some so Pathfinder Bloodlords Adventure Path is happening right now. The first volume is already out. This is a 6-volume adventure path. Takes you from first level all the way up closer to 20. So this is going to take a 6 months for us to publish monthly. Pathfinder Adventure Path format is remaining monthly 96 pages for the foreseeable future. Not changing like the Starfinder one is. We are cresting toward a very special volume 200 in 2024. And geez, it feels like we're almost there. Crazy to think that we have done about 189 volumes of Pathfinder Adventure Path thus far, but we are as excited about what's coming in the future than we are about anything we've done in the past. And one of the things that we're super stoked about right now is the Bloodlords Adventure Path. So here's a look at an individual volume of Bloodlords. And in the Bloodlords Adventure Path, you play the agents of the Bloodlords. They are the undead, usually, aristocracy of the kingdom of Geb, which is largely inhabited by undead. In fact, if you want to play undead creatures in the Bloodlords Adventure Path, you certainly can. We are not making this an explicitly evil campaign, but it is explicitly a non-good campaign. So you are going to explore some darker themes in this one. You start off doing pretty menial work here, helping with some farmland in rural Geb, where zombies harvest food for the living inhabitants of the nation, and you've got to help the Bloodlords do some problems there. And from there, things go from bad to worse as ghouls and nasty undead come into play. You start at the lower ends of Gebite society, dealing with smaller things, and as time goes on, you start dealing with the movers and shakers, and indeed, you even end up becoming Bloodlords of Geb yourselves. As usual with Pathfinder Adventure Paths, they are a hybrid adventure source book, and they contain a bunch of fun NPCs and monsters for you to encounter, like these folks. And I just couldn't resist this flying cauldron image. Absolutely love it, love it, love it. Lots of cool stuff that really explores the entire culture of Geb, with the characters right in the middle of the action. And we'll be coming back to Geb in a bit here, but let's move on and talk about the Lost Omens Travel Guide. The Lost Omens Travel Guide is releasing this month in August, and it is a 128-page guide to the culture of the world of Galarian. So we've given you the history, we've given you the geography, we've talked a little bit about some of the peoples and the various factions in the world, and this is a real deep dive on the culture itself. This is a book that we've wanted to do since before second edition. This book gives lots of information about what it's like to actually live in the world of Galarian. So there are spreads about fashion, there are spreads about architecture and some of the most famous structures and locations throughout the world. Lots of overviews of topics like this in the travel guides. Of course, a big overview on holidays and the rituals associated with them and how they play into various societies in Galarian. A look at a wide variety of characters, including some discussion on sports and other cultural things like games of chance. So we go into detail on a lot of these things. There's a couple of recipes in this book with food that you can make yourself and really immerse yourself into the world of Galarian. And of course, there's items and feats and different abilities that you can pick up that are related to the cultural topics that we're discussing in this 128-page source book that releases this month. Following that up is a book, boy, I always say I'm excited about this, I'm excited about that. I'm truly excited about this. This is the Lost Omens Impossible Lands. This is the next in our series of a sub-series of books in the Lost Omens line that goes really deep on one of the major regions that we announced in the very first core rulebook, actually. The section on the Inner Sea talks about 10 or 12 different large regions, and we've been exploring each one of those as we go through the Lost Omens line year by year. So we've already done the Mwangi Expanse, we've done the City of Absalom, and now the next one is the Impossible Lands. One of the cool things about nations that are covered in this book, and those nations are the Graveland. Nope, sorry, that is a different book. They are Nex, a land of wizards. Geb, the Undead Land. These pictures don't necessarily correlate to what I'm saying. The Mana Wastes, which is the land that is scarred by battles between the Archmages Geb and Nex in ancient days, that have left their scars across both kingdoms, but especially the land in between. This here's a look at Jalmaray, which is a outpost of the Eastern Empire of Vudra, sort of our East Indian analog, if you will, right off the east coast of Garund. Here's a look at those mana wastes. And then also, here's more next, but we'll also be looking at the Duchy of Alkenstar, which we touched on in Guns and Gears, and this is finally a deeper dive on that region as well. Lots of interesting denizens to encounter. One of the neat things about the world of Galarian is from the very start, we sort of set up the Inner Sea at the center of our map, and the further north and south you go from there, the kind of weirder that it gets. And it doesn't really get weirder than the Impossible Land. At least part of the map. I will note Garand goes even further south, and we'll get there eventually. This is very near the edge of the map, and there are some quite unusual creatures, including 5 new ancestries for you to be. So I want to go over those right now. On the left here, we have the Vinara, which is sort of inspired by the monkey people of the East. And they are fun ancestry, very popular in first edition, finally coming to second edition in Impossible Lands. Next to them, we have the Gorons. The Gorons are sentient plant people who started their life as magical food created in the land of Nex by druids, and meant to sustain life in an otherwise sort of blasted landscape. And the Gorons, over thousands of years, developed sentience and humanoid characteristics as a defense mechanism to stop people from eating them, because no matter what they try, they can't get away from the fact that a Goron is inherently delicious. So they need all the tricks they can to get people to stop trying to cut them up and put them on their plates. Next, we have the Nagaji, which are snake folk from the east as well. very appropriate for the Impossible Lands. We have the Vishkanya, which are poison-blooded folk, and they are mostly coming in by way of Vudra and Jalmaray, but are populous in Nex especially. And then we have the Keshrishi, which are a brand new ancestry of fun little rhino people. So lots of different varieties of new ancestries in this book. So we're going to explore a location called the Isle of Bopan, which is off the coast of Garund and was most recently the subject of some exploration in the Pathfinder Society organized play program, but was mentioned all the way back in Pathfinder Adventure Path volume number 1. So we're finally getting to some of the animal people of the island of Bopan, which ties heavily into the history of the Pathfinder Society. So a big 344-page guide to the Impossible Lands joins Absalom and the Mwangi Expanse in our deep dives on some of our huge meta regions. And this is a very exciting one for us. People have been wanting more detail on these locations, which didn't get much, honestly, in first edition. So this is a new opportunity to really dive deep into some of these lands for the very first time. And we could not be more excited about it. All right, speaking of excitement, let's talk about the March 2023 release in the Lost Omens line, and that is Firebrands. So Firebrands takes a look at one of the most important factions of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. In some ways, it's a kind of a chaotic adventurer, freedom fighter, rebel, rabble-rouser faction. I like to call them rebels with a cause. They, generally speaking, are on the right side of history, trying to fight against things like oppression, slavers, etc. And they've been very successful in that regard lately. And so that's a major part of our setting is the Firebrands. And so how do you join that organization? How do you play them? How do you represent the values of the Firebrands? This is a 128-page source book. They can be freedom fighters. They can be political agitators. Here we see very important fight against the oppressive forces of Cheliax, alongside Shensen, who is an ongoing NPC who is a member of the Firebrands. So a lot of deep dives into that. Very popular type of player character, kind of across the board in Pathfinder games. And so this is going to have lots of gear, lore, and archetypes and other powers and abilities for characters who are interested in that, or GMs who want to explore these themes in their campaigns. There's going to be an overview of some of the deities who are most commonly followed by members of the Firebrands. Here we have Callistria and Grandmother Spider, Besmara, the Pirate Queen, Arshay, Champion of the Oppressed. There's lots more. I could have put tons more of these in the presentation, but I gotta move on, folks. Some other really cool NPCs in the book itself, and lots of story hooks and updates on what the Firebrands are getting into all across the Inner Sea region and beyond. That joins the Pathfinder Society guide as well as the Knights of Lastwall to cover another major faction that was first introduced in the Lost Omens World Guide or Character Guide, and we're just continuing to go deeper and deeper. And up next is the Firebrands, and that, like I said, comes out in March of 2023. Tons of cool gear in there as well. All right, this is Crown of the Kobold King. Crown of the Kobold King is a compiled 128-page adventure that represents some of the very earliest adventures that we ever published as a company. So the Crown of the Kobold King is a collection of a couple of different early adventures that we did. The first and most important one being Crown of the Kobold King itself, which is a classic dungeon crawl that was for first level by Nick Logue, a very popular writer back in our Dungeon magazine days. And we contacted Nick and got him to write a new level of the dungeon for this in celebration of 2022, because 2022, although it's not Pathfinder's anniversary, it is Paizo's 20th anniversary. And as these have been very critical products for Paizo, we thought it'd be fun to re-release and update them to Pathfinder 2nd Edition in 2022. So this is coming out in August. So it's coming out this month. I've actually got a copy here on my desk, and it looks gorgeous. So it collects Crown of the Kobold King, kobolds all over the place in this thing, of course. It also collects Hollow's Last Hope, which was our very first standalone adventure that we did for the very first free RPG day back around 2006, 2007. And it also includes Hungry Are the Dead, which was a follow-up to Crown of the Kobold King. What happens when the seals of a lower level of the dungeon are broken and undead pour into the world? That also helped to presage the return of the Whispering Tyrant. So that was such an important event for the transition between first and second edition. If you're interested in the backstory on that, this is a good place to look. One neat thing about these adventures is they predate Pathfinder as a standalone RPG system and were originally published for the 3.5 edition of the world's oldest role-playing game. And so it includes some monsters like Varghouls here or Grix that never really found a home in Pathfinder, but now we've brought to Pathfinder second edition so we can get some stats for some of those classic monsters as well. So some returning old friends in the Crown of the Kobold King adventure. So look at itself. So a really great way to start off a Pathfinder second edition campaign and a nice way to revisit a classic adventure of Pathfinder's past. Speaking of classic adventures, in January, we're releasing the Fists of the Ruby Phoenix adventure path in hardcovers. That'll be a 256-page hardcover adventure path compilation similar to the Abomination Vaults adventure path that we just released. In fact, it's a great follow-up to that because it starts at 11th level, which is right where that adventure path leads off. So if you want to have the heroes of Otari join up in an international fighting tournament, this is your opportunity to take their adventures halfway across the world and to the next level. We'll be releasing a special edition of that adventure path and some battle cards to go with it as well in January of 2023. Also coming in 2023 is Gatewalkers, a paranormal themed adventure path that runs monthly from January to March. It starts at first level, and in Gatewalkers, the player characters and a number of strangers have all had a recent event where they pass through a magical gateway and they have missing time after that. They do not know certain things that happened following that event, and all they know is that they emerged with mysterious psychic power. So you can play any class that you want. It's going to be great for psychics and thaumaturges from the Dark Archive. This adventure path will be a perfect companion for the Dark Archive, but it'll work for everybody. There are strange gates that take you to lots of different locations in the world of Golarion, and there's something out there. The truth is out there, my friends, and the Gatewalkers Adventure Path will be your opportunity to explore it, learn from it, and develop your inner psychic power. So that is Gatewalkers. And here's a look at the first volume of that, again releasing in January from our old friend James L. Sutter. And some looks at the interior art of the first volume. This is pretty far out, so this is cutting edge stuff, brand new. Some of the foes that you'll meet, some of the friends. I absolutely love this little porcupine hedgehog guy. So I'll hear no bad words about him. I'll protect him with my very life itself. All right, let's talk about the next hardcover book for Pathfinder, and that is the Treasure Vault. So Treasure Vault releases in February of 2023. So it is the next book following the newly released Dark Archive. This is a massive tome filled with new and returning magic items and gear. The sort of framing device is that it's all gear that exists within this dragon's vault, and the little kobold you see on the cover there is your guide through the various chambers of the Treasure Vault. There's, of course, coverage of classic magic items like wands and staves, but also we're going to get into some even more in-depth crafting rules so you can make your own magical gear. There's a whole chapter on that. Chapter on alchemy that includes over 100 new alchemical items. There's magical tattoos and a variety of other new forms of magic. Of course, there's tons and tons and tons of items. This is going to be a great resource for GMs who are looking for ways to spice up their treasure piles, and a great sort of shopping list for players who want to plan out some future gear and maybe decide on whether to buy or craft some of the new items that are included in this book. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new items in this book. They are for all different price points. They're going to be useful for all Pathfinder campaigns. The Ultimate Equipment book we did for Pathfinder First Edition was very successful and popular. This is going to be, I think, very popular as well. It's got magical chewing gum. I mean, come on, that's awesome. So that is coming out in February of 2023. And I would be remiss if I did not point out that this book will see the triumphant return of the Earthbreaker and the Falcata, two of the most popular first edition Pathfinder weapons that have not yet made it into second edition will finally make their debut in Treasure Vault. Lots more to talk about with Treasure Vault in the various panels. Again, all of the stuff I've talked about will get deeper dives. Go to paizo.com/GenCon for a full schedule, and go to official Paizo channel on twitch.tv, where we have got streaming events going on all weekend long. So let's move into the future and talk about Abomination Vaults 5e. That's coming out in March, a 5th edition version of our Abomination Vaults Adventure Path. Lots of folks playing 5e out there. You've heard about Pathfinder, have heard about Adventure Paths, maybe aren't ready to change editions. That's cool. We have got you covered. So this will be a fully integrated 5th edition version of the Abomination Vaults Adventure Path, probably the most popular Pathfinder 2nd edition Adventure Path we've released to date. Hardcover compilation of this for PF2 has been very successful. People are loving it, and we're excited to bring this to a different game. And this will be coming out in March. Unlike the Kingmaker version, which has a bestiary you use alongside the second edition campaign book, this is all in one. So there's no Pathfinder second edition stuff in here. This is all just native 5e stuff. Should be really easy to run right out of the book. And we're excited to bring that out in March. All right. In April and May and June of 2023, we are announcing a brand new adventure path. This adventure path is called Stolen Fate, and it plays heavily off of the very popular Harrow deck, which is the Pathfinder version of the Tarot. We will be releasing a brand new super deluxe version with all new art of the Harrow deck in April of 2023, and along with this adventure path. When mysterious Harrow cards appear in the hands of a group of adventurers, they find themselves wrapped up in a fight for the very future of reality. What can even the most powerful heroes do if their destinies are stolen? So we'll find out over the course of 3 adventures starting in April 2023. This is an adventure path for levels 11 to 20, which makes it a nice follow-up for a lot of the beginner level stuff we've been publishing lately. We are really stoked about this. The Harrow has been a huge part of the history of Pathfinder, and we are very excited to base a 3-volume adventure path on it starting in April. Another adventure I want to talk about briefly, the Enmity Cycle. Enmity Cycle comes out in April of 2023. It is based in the land of Thuvia. Thuvia is perhaps best known as the source of the elixir of immortality known as the Sun Orchid Elixir. I'd say it's so well known for that that's kind of the only thing a lot of people know about it, and I'm somewhat pleased to report that this adventure has nothing to do with the Sun Orchid Elixir. It is indeed about a missing group of artists and why have they been abducted and to what ends. We'll play a little bit into the clockworks that are very popular in Thuvia. You can see there's a bunch of gremlins on the cover. This is sure to be a lot of fun, and it is sort of like a mid-level thing, like 4th level in there. So a great sort of second adventure for people to play in their campaigning. Really neat part of our world that we haven't explored too much. We're excited to get there in the Enmity Cycle starting in April. Okay, here's the next big rulebook, folks. Rage of Elements. This is not the final cover, but this is the book that we are putting out at next year's Gen Con. This will be our summer release for 2023. And Rage of Elements, like Book of the Dead went deep on Undeath, like Guns and Gears went deep on Clockworks and Gunpowder, the Rage of Elements book will go deep not only on the 4 canonical elements of air, fire, water, and earth, but also we are expanding to include 2 additional elements that are favored in other parts of the world of Golarion, and that will be the planes of wood and the planes of metal. Here we have a worksheet that shows some of Paizo's concept artist, Kent Hamilton, working with the team on what the plane of wood might look like. And there's a bunch of notes on there, some of which will make it into the final version of the book and some of which won't. But this is stuff that we do to kind of work out how we feel about stuff, how it should look. And it's always really inspirational to provide art like this to our writers and to our other artists so that we have a cohesive look. Kent's been great. The beauty of things like Dark Archive and especially the Book of the Dead, where he did a bunch of work on Geb, really is paying off, and we're thrilled to have him on staff. And this is his look at the plane of wood. I don't have in this presentation a look at the plane of metal, but you can check that out at the Exploring Pathfinder and Lost Omens rulebooks panel Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, where they'll go into even more detail in this book and talk a little bit more about the new planes. Here is a look at a wood elemental. We've got lots more of these, but I'm holding my powder because, oh boy, are they cool, and it's a long way between now and July. So here's just a hint at one of them. A lot of the wood elementals have these carven aspects to them. Should be really fun, and you know, a lot of players out there have fought fire elementals and air elementals, but you start throwing wood and metal elementals at them and they are not going to know what to do, and that's always an exciting moment. But speaking of exciting moments, one of the very most exciting things about the Rage of the Elements sourcebook is that it will introduce a new class to Pathfinder 2nd edition. And when I say a new class, I actually mean one of the very most popular classes from Pathfinder 1st edition will be making its debut at last in Pathfinder 2nd edition next summer, and that is the kineticist. And the reason that I'm talking about the kineticist and the reason that I'm so excited about the kineticist today is that we are introducing a playtest of the kineticist on Monday. So the Monday following Gen Con, Monday the 8th, I believe it is, come to Paizo.com and you can download this new class. And it is fully done with all of the powers for the fire, air, earth, and water elements. We'll be adding wood and metal later on post playtest. We wanted to kind of stick with the fundamentals and make sure that we get this right. So the kineticist is sort of a bender type of character who can use elements to their heart's desire. And we are delving deep into that and revisiting our old iconic character, Yoon. Now, one of the cool things about Pathfinder is that time in the world of Pathfinder moves equivalent to time in our real world. And so when we last checked in with Yoon, she was a young girl, and now she is very much a teenager. She has traveled quite a lot around the world, and she is ready to share what she has learned. And here is a look at the new version of her. You can see she still has her sidekick owlbear stuffed animal right there on her pack, although it's missing an eye and has perhaps seen some better days. She'll never give that thing up. It is her best friend. So Yoon is done by Wayne Reynolds, of course, our artist who does all the hardcover covers. He's hard at work on the actual cover of Rage of Elements right now, and I'm sure it's going to be totally amazing, just like all of this stuff, and just like this look at Yoon is going to be. So you want to be Yoon? You want to be someone like Yoon? You want to try out the kineticist? Please come to Paizo.com on Monday. Download the free playtest document. The playtest will be going for about a month. We'll have forums. We'll have surveys. We'd love to get your feedback. Feedback from actual play is so valuable to us. We just value it so much. You'll be able even to play this new class in Pathfinder Society Organized Play starting next week. So check this out. We're super excited about it. We can't wait to get your thoughts and feedback on it. Every playtest we have ever done at this company has made the product immeasurably better. So we look forward to your help this time around as well. And so thank you in advance for your input on the kineticist. Last thing I'm going to talk about today is launching here at the show. And that, of course, is the Pathfinder Society's new season. This new season is the Year of Boundless Wonder. It is playing right now in the Sagamore Ballroom and on our Discord server. Come to paizo.com/GenCon for more details on how to get involved. The Pathfinder Society has been entrusted with a vast trove of magical relics. In unraveling the mysteries and powers of these magic items, the Society comes face to face with an old nemesis who seeks to use the treasures for her own nefarious purposes. So as I said, going on right now in the Sagamore and online at paizo.com/GenCon, we'd love to have you involved in our long-running Pathfinder Society organized play program where thousands, indeed tens of thousands of gamers are eager to welcome you into the ranks of the Pathfinder Society. Great way to find a group of players if you don't have friends who are already into Pathfinder 2nd Edition or Starfinder. That's kind of the primary purpose of the organized play. And that brings us to the end of my presentation today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world to everybody at Paizo. Thanks to everyone at Paizo, from setting up the booth to getting all the scenarios prepped for play to organizing the convention at every level to holding down the home front while half of the staff is here in Indianapolis. Thank you, everybody. It's so great to have you all as a member of the Paizo community. It's been an interesting year for us, but it's been great, and there's great things in the future, and we're really happy to have you along with us for the ride. So hopefully you saw some awesome stuff. We are super excited to bring it to you. We'll see you next time when we'll have even more stuff. Check out the seminars, paizo.com/GenCon. There's even more information to come starting right now. Bye.